if you read that story, you would think Abraham ought to have been a better mediator. He ought to have been a lot more careful for the emotional state of Hagar, and not just taken Hagar and Jefela and subjugated her to the tyranny of falling pregnant just because the wife could not fall pregnant. First of all, Sarah was the one that went to Abraham and said, take Hagar for a wife and then put a baby in her stomach because I can't give you any babies. And then once the chick was pregnant, now heavily, Sarah was all like embittered and looked at her like she was harsh. She got jealous over Hagar. And so here it is that you ask this chick for a favor, she does you a favor, and then you're mean to her, and you're so mean that she runs into the wilderness. She runs away into the wilderness, and she's just a little maid girl. She's a servant, according to this like chick covering this content. She's a servant. She's just a maid. Do you understand what I'm saying? And then she runs into the wilderness. She doesn't have anything. She was taken from her homeland, Egypt. All right, and now she's living with these mean Hebrews that don't know whether they're coming or going. Like, that's the kind of stuff that anti-Semitism is made of. If you do not choose God's people purely because God chose them and not because they deserve chosenness, the scriptures make it clear that God did not choose them because they were numerous or good or great in any way. He chose them just because he could. It was his decision. Everything that God does that is gracious on the earth for us is undeserved. There is no one who does good, no, not one, not even one. For all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. So you cannot look at fallen humanity with all of their fluffiness and their general wasteful disposition and run with what they're doing. Old Testament prophets got it. They understood it. Look at Isaiah. He regarded himself as a man of unclean lips, living among a people of unclean lips. He did not think himself loftier than the regular man on the street. 2023, self-adoration and narcissism and conceit causes people to literally look at cases with their fallen fleshy eyes instead of with what God is doing. No one is good. Not even a single person. And there are people who are apparently really great guys and great girls in the scriptures that God disregarded altogether, and people who were horrific guys and girls that God chose. You will remember Rahab. She was like a whole prostitute, and yet she was in the lineage of Jesus Christ. So you cannot run with just your main little silly observation of a nice guy or a nice girl. You can't, because God is then going to humiliate you with the fact that okay, so you don't think she's nice. Who are you? For he who has no sin, let him cast the first stone. God does not operate that way, and unless you humble yourself to the recognition of how God thinks, if you don't try to study, investigate, peruse, pick away at the mind of God, you are going to literally pick away at the mind of human beings. You are going to make that error. You are going to make that error. Do you understand what I'm saying? His thoughts are not ours. His ways are not ours. His are far loftier. They are far weightier than ours. So unless you humble yourself to the fact that God is holy, and whatever he does, if you don't understand it, it's his mystery, and the mystery of godliness, he will ultimately reveal it. And what choices he makes, really, you are in no position to question them. No one can say to God, what have you done? Nebuchadnezzar made that realization after he got out of that 7-year groveling spree, and he was like, the nations of this world are accounted as nothing before Emmanuel. No one can say to him, what have you done? So the moment you start to say, what have you done to God, and you stand with Palestine or whatever, that's not like Philistia, with ancient Philistia, when you stand with Gaza, when you stand with if anything, Gaza belongs to the Hebrews. I don't even know what is currently been, but the people have parted, they've split his land. That's the issue. If you stand with Hamas, you are standing with an observation, a fluffy, flaccid, immoral little observation of a sanctimoniousness, a self-righteous way of looking at things. The whole world keeps on saying to Israel that you need to basically retaliate against what it is that Hamas did to you with proportionate force. No, you're gonna have to dismember all of Hamas. Otherwise, the threat is always going to be there. Must they sit in Jefela where they're at, freaking out, wondering if tomorrow their babies are also going to be cut in half again, because Hamas is still like a whole thriving concern. If America was able to wipe ISIS from the face of the earth thanks to what it is that they did on 9/11, why does not Israel have that same right to wipe out Hamas? Like, that's the same stuff. Those same journalists in the US that are speaking all of this rubbish, if at all their own government did not wipe out ISIS from the face of the earth, none of them would even be able to go to work safely and trust there's not going to be a bomb exploding in their premises, at their studios where it is that they record news every single day. And yet they are expecting Israel to just sit back and just fill out with like a whole threat in the border just next door. I mean, America was better off. It was like entire continents away from the Middle East, from King Afghanistan, where it is that Bin Laden was from. So they were a lot safer in the US than they ever could have been. What is this? Right now in Israel, where they're literally just next door to the enemies, and they're expecting them to like do a ceasefire now because the number of casualties in Gaza is disproportionate to what it is that Hamas initially massacred. Hamas could not massacre as many people as they wanted to because they were a small little a bully terrorist force coming into a country that has got a very strong military. So of course that was not going to happen. However, you gotta eliminate the risk altogether, if at all Israelis are going to be able to sleep. Look at what's happening right now in the southern border in Israel. All right, they've Lebanon, they have gone right ahead and evacuated a whole bunch of Israelis from their homes because of this war that is going on. So if they then ceasefire, those people, are they going to go back to their houses and hope not to get bombed by the northern front? Are they going to just kind of chill on some? Well, I mean, I guess it is what it is. It is absolutely what it is. Let's hope that since we did a ceasefire, they're not gonna this time around, instead of coming in from the kibbutz, they're gonna from Gaza. This time they'll be coming in from Lebanon. We'll take it. What in the world? Like, why the world does not understand that is absolutely and entirely beyond me. So, like I said, Sarah was a mean chick to a certain extent. And if you just read the Bible with a carnal mind, you will see a mean chick in Sarah. You will also, yes, she was, because the human heart is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked. You go and you ask a woman for a favor. After she gives you the favor, you treat her like trash. She then runs out into the wilderness and is comforted by who? God. Because God is the comforter of the widow, of the orphan. God is the comforter of the person that has been laid desolate. God is the comforter, not Sarah, not Abraham. God is the one that gives comfort. So if you don't report the news of the Bible from a vantage point of God, but you report the news of the Bible from the vantage point of how dare Sarah was just so mean, my goodness, you are going to then on that day say to the Christian community, y'all need to be empathizers of Philistia. You need to be empathizers of Palestinians. You need to empathize with Hamas. You need to see where they're coming from. You might as well be Anthony Guterres, saying that this thing does not operate within a vacuum. And if you're going to be like Anthony Guterres, you also need to go back to the very beginning, which is Isaac, Abraham, Sarah, Isaac, Ishmael, Hagar. You have to go back to those roots if you want that context. But nobody's trying to go back to the very, 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 very beginning. God is the one that comforted Hagar in the wilderness. God is the one that also told Hagar to go back because he had a plan for her and her son. And she then went back to where it is that she stayed with her master, Sarah and Abraham, etc. Isaac, Ishmael grew up to be a certain age, and the abuse continued from Sarah. She got even worse after she bore Isaac. After Sarah bore Isaac, when she was pregnant with Isaac, that's when she passed Hagar even more shade. She passed her even more shade on some, whatever, man. I'm the wife, I'm the main chick. You might have given my husband a first child, but this here is the child of the promise. This woman's child is going to take my kid's promise. This woman's child is going to do this and that and that. Yeah, so then Sarah basically caused Hagar to then permanently be removed from the camp. But who was the one to comfort Hagar and to make sure Hagar doesn't die when she was literally on the last bit of water in that wineskin for her son Ishmael? It was God. God Almighty is the comforter. God, not humans. Abraham looks like this namby-pamby deadbeat dad that let his kid be taken out of his sight, like a father that pays papgeld for one child and not for another. Abraham is a mere mortal whose heart is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked. That's Abraham. Do you understand what I'm saying? But like God is the father to the fatherless, and he takes the cause up of the widow and of the orphan, which at that stage Hagar and Ishmael had been made. So God fulfilled his own face. He fulfilled his own character in the lives of Hagar and and Ishmael, in a way that Sarah basically dropped the ball, and I am pretty certain the Lord will judge her for it at some point, if not already that having been done. It needs to be comprehended that unless you look at things from the viewpoint of God, you are going to make some pretty flagrant statements that are going to spark a fire in the kingdom of heaven that is going to divide the church, and on that day you're going to have to account to God for that. We cannot have any Christians at all standing with Ishmael. We just can't, because the promise was given to Isaac. Why can we not have Christians standing for Ishmael, because God, his purpose for Ishmael was to create that stubborn, wild animal of a kid that would indeed fulfill his judgment on Israel for their rebellion. He told them that he would scatter them all across the world. Their names are going to be a byword. They're going to be anti-Semitically mistreated all over the show. And among the biggest persecutors of the Jews on earth by God's purposes is Ishmael. The Lord literally raised up Ishmael to be one of the biggest anti-Semitic movements against Isaac because of Isaac's rebellion. So if you are a Christian, you cannot stand with Ishmael, because you are then on that day standing for anti-Semitism. The anti-Semitism in the world that was created by God to deal with Isaac was there because of Isaac's rebellion. But as the body of Christ, we have a responsibility to recognize what the ultimate end goal of even that anti-Semitism spurred up by God is going to do. It's going to bring about Jacob's trouble. It is going to restore Jacob back to God. And Jacob, upon being restored back to God, becomes who? Our brother. He is our big brother. He is our prodigal son, big brother. You cannot hate your own family. The Lord said, you must always provide for your own family, especially for members of your own household. If you do not do that, you have denied the faith and are worse than an infidel. If you do not provide for your family, especially members of your own household, you have denied the faith and are worse than an infidel. So if you do not provide love, support, and charity to Jacob, you have denied the Christian faith and are worse than an infidel, because he is your older brother. You therefore can never stand with Ishmael, because none of us come from Ishmael. None of us who are Christians or Jews come from Ishmael. But literally every last one of us are descendants by adoption or by birth, biologically, of Isaac. Christians are adopted brothers and sisters of Isaac, while Jews are biological brothers and sisters of Isaac. We're the same family. Ishmael is an outsider. We have no business standing with Ishmael at all. Whether or not Ishmael's mom was left out in the wilderness, God took care of her. God took care of that widow. God took care of that orphan. It was God that fulfilled his responsibility towards the human race in that regard, while we continue to be typical. However, where you place your allegiance as a Christian should be to your own family. You must love your family, especially to those who are of the household of faith. So Christians first, and then Jews, because they are prodigal sons that will ultimately be restored to God. The gospel was given to the adopted children because the original ones rejected it. But Ishmael was always on the outside. He was always on the outliers. Always. He was never supposed to inherit the promise. The only purpose for Ishmael was the persecution of the Jews because of their rebellion. If anything, Sarah and that whole mistake that she made in telling her husband to go into Hagar was the first act of rebellion against God by the Hebrews. It was the first act of rebellion. And so God judged her with it. God judged her son with it. God judged her future descendants with that mistake, whatever you want to call it. So no Christian has any business standing with Ishmael, because on that day you've denied the faith and you are worse than an infidel. You cannot, therefore, during a war that has divided the world between Jews and Christians, not Christians, Jews, Christians, and everybody else, you cannot, as a Christian, start empathizing with Ishmael. Ishmael had to be born. Hagar had to be protected. God did exactly that on her behalf. But remember, the only purpose for Ishmael's proliferation as a going concern was to judge Isaac. But Isaac will always be a brother to us. How can I describe it further using perhaps a secular example? It's like being in school, right? High school. You're in grade 8. And your older brother or older sister is in matric, and you and your older brother and let's say brother, you and your older brother are always fighting at home. You are always at loggerheads at home. You are always just you can't agree on anything. Your brother is always snooping around in your things. Your brother gives a hard time to your friends. He's rude to your friends. Y'all don't get along. You've got so much sibling rivalry that your parents have to take you guys to therapy. And then one day, some grade 10 student, you're in grade 8, your older brother is in matric, some grade 10 student that's out of nowhere, then every single day during lunch makes a decision to basically bully your little sister to give him her lunch money and her sandwich. So your sister, your kid sister, every single day is starving, getting home all sad, and she starts to get all withdrawn because there is a bully in school. There is a bully, and she doesn't even tell you that there's a bully because you have such a bad relationship with each other. You have sibling rivalry. You imagine your brother's not gonna have your back because he never has your back at home. He's always also bullying your friends. He's always stepping on your toes. He's always meddling with your things in your bedroom. He's always, whenever your mom brings treats home, he takes the biggest portion, and you can't fight because you're small. You can't fight because you're small. And then there is a bully in grade 10. Out, you're taking your food every single day, and then your brother starts to notice that you're losing weight. You're withdrawing. When he fights you, you're not even fighting back. What is the thing that would necessarily make you recognize that your brother is your brother and blood is thicker than water? As if your brother then comes to you on some what's wrong, knocks on your door this time around instead of just flying in. And it's like, little sis, what's up? What's wrong? I've noticed you've lost weight. Why are you so withdrawn? Why aren't you inviting your friends anymore? What is it? Is it me? Is it me? On that day, you start to realize that your brother actually cares. And then you then tell your brother, you're like, no, there is this like kid in grade 10. He keeps taking my lunch. And he keeps taking my lunch money. And every day, unless I hide from him or go to school using a different route, he always catches up with me and shoves me and pushes me. If at all the brother does not go out of, like literally go to school, given that he's in matric, and tell that boy, if you don't leave my sister alone, after school is after school, and I don't care if I get expelled, your nose is going to bleed. You better leave my sister alone. On that day, if he does not do that for his little sister, he has denied the family and is worse than an infidel. What's the word that I'm looking for to replace infidel in this secular example? You know when kids disown, yeah, he is worse than a disowned child. If that brother does not stand for his sister, he has denied his family and is worse than a child that has been disowned by the family. It is his familial responsibility to have the back of the sister, even if under normal circumstances, when things are peachy, everything is hunky-dory, the sun is shining, the weather is sweet, and rain falls in summer. On normal occasions, they can have sibling rivalry and poke at each other and put tricks up one another's sleeves and trip each other and basically just act like siblings that are crazy when they're in each other's presence. Yeah, but when there is a threat to the very existence of your sister, when there is a threat to the very survival of your family, if that brother does not act appropriately, if he prides himself in the fact that somebody's handling his sister on his behalf, when the brother does that, then he has denied the family and is worse than one who has been disconnected from the family, disowned. That's exactly what it's like with Jews and Christians. In this particular example, the older brother in this instance would be the Jews, like not even the Jews, what is this? It would be the Christians to a certain extent. It would be the Christians. Why? Because we embrace the gospel. They rejected their Messiah and they persecute us. Jews do persecute Christians, especially if you go to Israel. There was like this group of nuns walking past some Jewish kids coming back from the synagogue, and they literally spat on the shoe, like pa pa pa. They spat on the floor where these nuns, these Catholic nuns were passing by. Yeah, that was before the 6th of October. Do you understand? But on the 7th of October, when those same Catholics and those same Christians are then standing with the Jews, that's when they realize that, oh my goodness, my brother actually cares. So in this particular instance, like I said, the big brother is like Christians, who the Jews feel we've taken away their thing that they're doing. We've taken away their religion. We think that we're the chosen people when rather they are the ones that are chosen. We basically are viewed as bullies that are always flying into their room, and we should not have anything to do with basically laying claim to their God. Laying claim to their God. But when things hit the fan, we are the ones that go in and check. We are the ones that notice that they're skinny. Why have you lost weight? Why are you withdrawn? Why aren't you talking so much? Why aren't you watching TV with the family anymore? Why aren't you as cocky as you used to be? You used to give me so much attitude. Every time I walked in, you used to throw a spoon at me. Why don't you throw the spoon anymore? And when that is the case, you notice that even though during good times you give a person a whole bunch of attitude, you notice that even when times are good, you pass me shade, you give me attitude. You would imagine that now, because times are bad, given the attitude that you passed me, that you're gonna be grateful when I'm being bullied. So somebody's helping you bully me. But when the brother stands up for the sister, that's when the sister realizes that they have so much in the brother, and that the brother has never ever forsook their job or their responsibility, their duty to their family. It's just that times were not so rough, and thunder was not rumbling over the sister's head to a point where he needed to be there to protect her. He was taking, I guess, for granted that the sister's cocky and she will survive every last act of indiscretion by me because things are still good. But when things get really bad, I'm gonna be big brother. And that's how Christians are towards Jews. They sometimes treat us like trash, but when things are really bad, we are literally the only ones there for them. And like, we are big enough to be able to fight as well. And they're bullies. We are in a position to be able to fight their bullies. Right now, Israel, if at all it was not for the Christian community across the world, would have such little chance of fight. They would not have enough on their plate concerning this information war that stands with them. They would not be able to stand against global anti-Semitic sentiment. The world is slippery. They're like a knife through butter, the way that they melt so easily at like a change of rhetoric, a change of narrative against the Jews. The only people that are sticking fast and are holding on strong to the Jews in the world, with unshakably so, are the Christians. Why? Because our foundation is Jesus. It's God. We understand history. We understand how this ends. And we know who to allegiance to. We understand who to hold on to. Who to hold on to. And it is no one but the Jews, whether or not they have embraced their Messiah. Because we understand ultimately they will. They are a brother or a sister that will ultimately acknowledge they're part of the family, or that we're part of their family. However you want to see it, a chicken before the egg before the chicken, you get my point. So now that I've made the analogy with the kids in high school and the bully in grade 10, you must understand that if, as a Christian, you are priding yourself in the grade 10 bully slapping your baby sister silly, you are ridiculous, you are irresponsible, and you are on that day not a good brother. You are basically like one who is priding yourself in your little sister getting raped even by the bully after school. You are priding yourself in someone that is your flesh and your blood, literally going through the hell at the hands of someone only because of the fact that you and your little sister have got sibling rivalry too. You gotta know when to stop fighting. You gotta know when to put down your beliefs about what the Jews are. You gotta know when under heaven to stand with, and this is no time for any Christian to be straddling the fence concerning like an anti-Semitic global sentiment. You cannot be standing with Hagar as a Christian. You cannot be standing with her Ishmael. You cannot, because while they did belong to Abraham, and while Ishmael was born first, and while Sarah was mean, and while Abraham was namby-pamby and did not mediate properly as a man, bottom line is God chose Isaac. And so if God chose Isaac, you are Isaac's sibling and not Ishmael's. If you're a Christian, meaning let somebody else be a Palestinian sympathizer. It cannot be you as a Christian. Let somebody else be a Hamas sympathizer. It cannot be you. Let somebody else have the mercy and the back of a people that have taken a land for themselves with no historical or contextual understanding as to why under heaven it doesn't even belong to them. Let somebody else look out for them. Let God, just as he did with Hagar and Ishmael in the wilderness, take care of those Palestinians suffering in Gaza. Let the Lord have the back of Hagar. Let the Lord have the back of Ishmael. Let the Lord convert Palestinians to Christianity. Let the Lord take care of the widow and of the orphan. But as for you, you have got to stand with Isaac. No matter what, you stay in the camp of your brothers and your sisters. Otherwise, you are worse than an infidel and you have denied the faith. War in it, there will always be casualties. You cannot allow yourself to be desensitized from standing on the right side because of a rhetoric, propaganda being proliferated on the rooftops that is trying to make you or pull your heartstrings for Hagar. It is a sorry case for Hagar to be in the wilderness. I will not deny that. But God will give her a wineskin full of water through an angel of the Lord and proliferate her son that is going to be like a wild oxen, a wild animal beating on the trenches of everybody on the earth. Let the Lord raise up Ishmael for his own purposes, because Ishmael was literally raised up for no other reason than to afflict the Jews. His only job, only reason he had to get to a certain age, only reason he had to have descendants, only reason why he had to live and not die in the wilderness that day was because he was being used to judge our brother. That's the only reason. And that's why you cannot stand with him today, because he is currently an enemy of Christianity and an enemy of Judaism. He is an enemy of the only acceptable Abrahamic religions. Christians are saved right now, and the Jews will ultimately embrace their Messiah. There are only two acceptable religions on the earth. It is literally Messianic Jews and Christians. Everybody else goes to hell. Everybody else goes to hell. So he is entirely rejected by God, meaning you as a Christian cannot stand with him. You cannot stand with him. He is not your brother. He was, however, raised up for such a time as this. It would be like standing with Judas just because he was a disciple of Jesus Christ. No, I'm sorry. You don't get to do that. Judas had to live up to a certain point. He had a job. Just because he had a job does not mean you must sympathize with his suicide. He had a job to do, following which he was supposed to be somewhat of a son of perdition. Yeah. Look at things from the vantage point of God. Let somebody else cry for the Palestinians. That's what I'm saying. In the same way that somebody else cried for Hagar. Christians, you gotta stand with the Jews. Let somebody else cry for Hagar. It's not our job. It is not our job. The Lord does not expect us to be omnibenevolent the way that he is, because he knows that we are made of dust. Therefore, have compassion on us. He knows we are made of dust. He knows we tend or incline towards partiality. He knows that we are respecter of persons. He knows that we are always making war with this body of death. So if you have to make a choice as to what it is that you will resist with this body of death versus what you will embrace with this body of death, you better embrace Isaac and not Ishmael. It's hard to look at suffering in Gaza. It's hard to look at the women, the men, the boys, the girls, the children that are suffering. But that's like looking at Ishmael in the wilderness with Hagar. It's literally like looking at Ishmael. You cannot turn your attention towards them because they were in the wilderness when you're supposed to be looking intently at the family of Abraham, Sarah, and Isaac for your salvation. Like, let that be known and let that be clear. But when you don't know the scriptures, when you're not studying with every bone in your body, or when you are inclined towards partiality in your heart unto a people that are not your own, you are going to go and do a whole sermon as a Christian in the middle of this division in the Middle East, in the middle of global sentiment against the Jews increasingly becoming hostile. Yeah, you are going to do a whole sermon where you're empathizing low-key with Palestine by empathizing with Hagar. Wrong time for that sermon, girl. Absolutely wrong time. But it's stuff like that. It's that level of bordering on apostasy that I'm looking at happening in that chick in the US, that I am waking up every single day to be like, that's just a thing. That's just a thing. People absolutely love to ignore things that did happen or things that did not happen in order to proliferate their own agenda. People adore to pretend that something did not happen when it absolutely did happen. The level of gaslighting, like when you just absolutely disregard somebody's religion, when you disregard somebody's faith, somebody's allegiance, what it is that they pay homage to, what it is that they have insisted be the thing that they're standing with. In a country where there is a freedom of religion, where there is a freedom of speech, and somebody is literally trying to impose the thing that they're doing on you, and they are doing so hoping to gaslight you into ignoring that you were ever afflicted. The attack on the 7th of October happened in Israel. That'll never be taken back. And if at all Israel is gaslit by the planet to basically cease fire permanently and not get justice against what happened to them on the 7th, they will never find peace. There will always be injustice hovering around in the sky. It is written in God's word that the Lord hates the acquittal of the wicked and the condemnation of the righteous. The acquittal of the wicked and the condemnation of the righteous. Injustice and hope deferred that makes the heart sick dries up the bones. When a person doesn't have justice, they can't rest, they can't sleep. And that is because that's how God made us. He is the one that ascertained that apart from justice, humanity cannot sleep. So when you linger an individual in the room through injustice because everybody else in the room agrees they should not get any justice, you are saying everybody else is going to go to bed sound while this person lacks justice. We need justice to feel like there is tomorrow in the human race. And when more and more of it is ignored, there is less and less inclination in us all. There is less and less inclination in us all to pursue it in the future. People start to wear a disposition of despondency. If at all, guys, justice is perpetually ignored on a loop. Like if more and more people are denied or robbed of justice, less and less people are going to seek it. But when people don't seek justice only because they anticipate they won't get it, they become despondent. Morale becomes very low. There is no joy in the room. Just a settling grain where people are just going through the modes. If Israel does not get justice against Hamas, the Hebrews, the Israelis, all of them, whatever might be their religion, will merely be going through the modes, and they will never ever feel a sense of peace. And again, if you don't get justice, if an ecosystem does not foster justice, not only do people get disincentivized from seeking it in the future, but they also fear doing what is right because they trust justice to reign. They will be reduced to shadows of themselves. They will be reduced to mere apparitions of what they used to be. Like if you were this feisty, energetic, outspoken person that would share your views on something, and if in the past that caused you to get unjustly beaten down as you were talking, next time you're not going to be that vivacious girl. Next time you're going to hold your words in, lest somebody else should beat you down for being so outspoken. So not only just does justice beget more injustice, in the sense that it causes people to not want to seek it out lest they should waste their resources, energy and time. It also begets low morale because people feel like, what's the point? Anyway, nothing good is going to happen. Not only does it also beget low morale, it also begets low belief in one's ability to contribute to an ecosystem. It makes people talk less. It makes people try less. It makes people safe. It makes people just kind of tread safely. And if at all people are treading safely, there is no community or society that can ever thrive with people just playing safe. It is precisely the act of taking risks or of pushing the envelope that progresses a paradigm. Do you understand what I'm saying? So innovation is embarked on because of a brave population of people that are encouraged to keep on trying to do a new thing. So you kill innovation when you don't award justice. You kill morale. You kill the seeking out of justice in the first place by everybody all over the show. So then when that is your society, you've got literally a whole bunch of docile, mindless drones with very little color, no personality. You are creating a Pleasantville society. It's like black and white. There is no pink in anybody's cheeks, just a low morale with drone-like civilians for a population. And when that's the case, you will then look back at all of this insanity that you have created on the ground and realize that this is not the country I've signed up for. Who in the world wants to look like Iran 24 hours a day? Who wants to live in these Sharia law states where it is that morale has been decreased by a lack of justice provided to civilians when they want to fight, a lack of freedom of expression, a lack of attempts or tries to do anything at all that's colorful? You can't, otherwise you're going to get beaten down for doing it. You also are dealing with, like I said, people who are just going through the modes. Every single day they just wake up and they sleep and they just adhere. They obey. Adhere, obey. It's like literally George Orwell's 1984, like in just Iran, just in one geographical location on the earth. And that's those societies do exist on earth, but they're unattractive to everybody else that comes from free societies. It's unattractive. Only look at Israel, the color of it, the composition of it, in comparison to its neighboring countries. They're literally the only bouncy, bubbly place. Everywhere else is just black and white and dry. Why? Because it's not a democracy. It is a sovereign, a dictatorship. Do you understand? That has made out of the people mindless drones that are just merely going through the modes. That's what happens when you withhold from people not only liberties but justice when there is injustice that afflicted them. I am sitting where I am sitting, literally watching what's going on in the Middle East and freaking out that whatever happened to me is going to happen to them. But again, whatever happened to me, if it happens to them, my prayer and my biggest one is that they should stay just like me. That even though people want them to shut up, keep quiet, sit down already, come on, don't you see you've lost, that they won't. That they will keep on pushing even when years have progressed. That even when it appears nobody's listening to them, nobody cares, like proper, everybody has won. I am still the Karaba that I was in 2014. I am not going to end up, I'm not going to come out of this like I've been put through some slicer, some mincer, do you understand? As patty. I'm not going to come out as patty to be cooked on a grill and then eaten. I am not going to be minced from what I used to be. Even if people are insisting that be the case, saying of me, Karabo, you will never ever get to live again if you don't embrace the status quo. If I don't get justice, this colorful woman that you're looking at, I will be flattened. I will be scared to speak ever again. I will be nervous to raise an issue at all. I will be nervous to basically raise a grievance or have a disagreement with anybody. I will be afraid because of the majority consensus that I should be silenced and shut up before. It will give me so much PTSD that I will be scared of being ostracized, isolated, and abandoned by society again. If I don't keep on rioting in my own little corner, Giliwan, trumpeting as an elephant in the room, I will lose my color, I will lose my spunk, my fervor, I will lose my ability to innovate, I will lose my ability to change a paradigm. Therefore, I will lose my activistic flair, the thing that is basically a riot and a fight against injustice. I will not sit or run with the acquittal of the wicked, even if I'm the only one standing for my own case. The Lord, it is written in the scriptures, as he inspired the writer of the word of God to speak these things, spoke about the widow who was persistent to a wicked judge who was ultimately given justice. And then he was like, so I mean, really, if you're dealing with an unjust judge or a wicked judge who gives a persistent widow justice, ultimately, what then will a holy and a righteous judge give you? Justice. If you keep on coming, if you keep on pitching, if you keep on rocking up every single day. I do not want my color to be drained out of me. I don't want to end up a Stepford wife, for crying out loud. Have you seen the King in the Stepford Wives, that movie? It's exactly descriptive of what in the world under heaven happens to people when they fight until they're made to stop. If you've seen, especially the Stepford Wives version of the 1960s or 50s or whatever, like the old school one, 1970s, the old school one, it's on YouTube, go and watch it. Okay, it can be used to describe what happens to people when they first fight a narrative they see coming at them, and then they get cooed by it, and then there's no color left in them anymore. The one that was a remake in the in the 2000s, it does not compare to how dystopian it is that the 1970s one is. So go watch the 1970s one, because it's nicely dystopian to describe this particular structure. Literally, the Stepford wives that replace the real women are robots that kill the true women with a whole thriving personality and character of their own and replace them with themselves. And in this movie, the lead character has a best friend that she meets in the Stepford city, right? City, we shall call it a town. In the Stepford town, she meets a best friend, and the two of them are fluid, lovely, and they start to make observations of the women in Stepford as, like something's wrong with them. They're kind of robotic. They are doing strange, funny, and then they're doing things strangely and in a funny way. And then they meet this one lady who lives in like a massive mansion house with a tennis court and everything. And when they meet her, she's fluid. She's like all good. She's all there herself, and they have tea with her and everything. Yeah, and then they go there and they play tennis with her, and it's all good and well. Next time they go and they visit their friend, she is a Stepford wife. She's been robotized, and she is like, talking, saying all the right things, and she's robotic, and she's all postured. She stopped smoking. She was a smoker. She is basically everything that some authoritarian sovereign wanted her to be. Some fascist sovereign of a husband wanted her to be that thing. And then when these two best friends make a discovery that, oh my goodness, like, I don't know what's happening here, but Martha, let's say her name was Martha because I forgot the names of the characters. Martha was not like this last week. Why is she like this? And she doesn't even smoke anymore. She used to smoke like a 20 a day. What's going on? What's going on? What's going on? They then continue to make these strange observations, right? Until one day the lead character discovers the operating premises of the manufacturing of the Stepford ladies, and goes to talk to a friend to tell her, hey, I made a discovery. I found out what was wrong with Martha. And then she meets her friend having been converted into a Stepford wife too. Then when she realizes that her friend is gone, she's now all by herself. She's all by herself, and she's wondering, goodness gracious, they took my girl. They took my girl, they took Martha. I'm the only one left. And this woman tries to fight it, and in the end, her husband hands her over. She thinks her husband is trustworthy, but her husband is the one that hands her over to being taken over by this other woman. And she walks into her bedroom and sees a woman that is naked, literally, that looks exactly like her, that is going to replace her where her clothes be with her husband. And she is they're both blonde, but she is super hard knock blonde. Her hair is straight. They both have straight hair, but her hair is like not even a single hair out of place, super straight. And she's like, everything about her is just like Stepford perfect. Do you understand? And then that's when she discovers this is how this works. This is how this works. Here it is that this other woman is looking at her replacement, and she is like thoroughly trying to survive. But the Stepford lady, the wrong one, basically the robot version, goes on right ahead and kills the wife. Do you understand what I'm saying? Yeah. And then the movie ends in a very dystopian fashion, where it is that this lady like is pushing a trolley, looking like a Stepford wife, like gliding instead of even walking, in a store, and greeting all the women with a nod on the left and on the right, and picking just what she needs to pick, and the movie ends that way. You would think that she ultimately conquers, she ultimately wins, but the movie ends with her getting taken over, and she's the last one to get taken over. It is so dystopian, it'll make you cry. One of those there's no good ending type movies. Yeah, that's exactly what happens to a person who does not insist on getting justice. You will fight and you will fight, and you will have people that will be with you initially, and they will dwindle and they will fall away because of the pressure to capitulate to like structures. They will use resources that you have or don't have in order to force you to ultimately capitulate, and those who have ultimately capitulated will change on you. The world around you will change. I don't know how many friends started out initially, so guys, like, wait, my life has been so hard, started out initially supporting me, being on some, these people are rubbish, how dare they, like, how could they do this to you? And then next thing, she rocked up the next day pushing a grocery cart in the mall with breasts that obviously look like they're not hers, her hair too straight for it to belong to an actual woman, nothing out of place, her shirt is too crisp for crying out loud, and she's wearing some Voops frock dress that she would never have worn before because she liked jeans and a t-shirt, and now she's pushing a trolley and picking a milk cart on the shelf that she, you know, is reading the expiry label like a robot, and then putting it in the, and this is your girl now, this is your bestie, this is the person, the two of y'all were busy throwing stones at the enemy camp, the two of y'all were busy starting an underground rebellion group, and now she's pushing a cart. She's a Stepford wife. I have dealt with so many Stepford girlfriends that I am scared of women now. I'm scared of women. Like, I proper don't want new friends. I don't want anybody talking to me. I don't want to send anybody an email or them send me. I don't want to fellowship with anybody. And the two of us be like, yeah, this is nonsense, this is rubbish. And the two, yeah, just agree basically. And then have them change on me. I have had men and women Stepford on me. I've had everybody change on me. If you don't keep fighting, you convert the world into Stepford. Stepford, do you understand? And these people are trying to make me a Stepford convert, like something that is going to capitulate because the whole world around me has George Orwell's 1984. The whole planet has in 1984. Go and even watch. You're not George Orwell 1984, the movie version. You can even read the book like proper. If you want that to happen to you, you will stop rioting and shouting on the rooftops. But if the people who are rioting and shouting on the rooftops are so outnumbered, if they're so outnumbered, then this is not sustainable. Ultimately, a person will become a Stepford wife unless the Lord intervenes. And that's what I'm currently talking about. I don't know if we have tomorrow, because all these people out here turning into Stepford citizens of the earth. I mean, at some point, they're going to get to the small number of us that are left that are fighting, that are resisting. It is impossible to be beleaguered on all sides by an entire population of crazy people and win. It is written in the book of Revelation about the devil upon getting cast out of heaven with a third of the stars, that the devil has come down to the earth and he's with great wrath because he knows his time is short. And it is written also that the Lord has given him authority to make war with the saints and to overcome them. In other words, there's going to come a time in history when Christians are overwhelmed and overcome. Cood. Altogether, there's nothing we can do. We're going to be massacred. Our heads are going to be bowling balls for sport, played with, like Alice in Wonderland, off with their heads, the queen, using our heads as golf balls or bowling balls just to play games with them. The day is going to arrive. So even our support for the Jews right now, there's going to come a time when it's useless. It doesn't matter. Nothing, like no Semitic empathizer. No Semite empathizer is gonna stand. No Semite is gonna stand. No one is going to stand that is still trying to look at the God of Israel. A third of the Jews will be salvaged in the tribulation. From the massacring, God is going to salvage a remnant of them. That was always the plan. Christians are going to get massacred all over the show, killed, like for their faith. They will have to hide out in dungeons, etc. And we know that we're close to that time when there is an increasing sentiment against the Jews. And you think as Christians that it's not going to come to you? If you are a sympathizer, which Christians always are, ultimately the anti-Semitic sentiment is going to become anti-Christian. There is already an anti-Christian sentiment across the world anyway. Christianity is, or at least just before what happened in Israel, it was the most persecuted religious group in the world. Right now, because of what happened in Israel, I feel as if though maybe Jews have overtaken Christians in terms of persecution. So if just before October 7th, the most persecuted religious group across the world was Christians, and after October 7th it was the Jews, don't you see Bible prophecy coming together? We are about to get annihilated, but it is not an option to ever down tools. There will also be a great apostasy. where it is that people are going to take heed to seducing spirits and doctrines of demons. So Christians are going to be doing sermons where they're supporting Hagar during a time where it is that the descendants of Hagar are massacring the descendants of Sarah, the descendants of Abraham. Like, you cannot do a sermon like that, not during this time, girl, because then on that day it is not neutral. It is not neutral. You're not just giving a lesson or educating people. Now you are basically like extending an olive branch to Palestine, which you have no luxury to do if you're a Christian. You just don't have that luxury. You literally do not. You gotta pick a side. You gotta pick a side. It is war, and people have got to, under heaven, understand that there will be casualties. Let the Lord take care of Palestinians that will ultimately convert to Christianity, and then we'll embrace them as brothers and sisters. But for now, while they are still what it is that they are, we have no under heaven at all a prerogative to look at them with any kind of favor. If at all you want to protect your heart from having your strings pulled in that regard, just don't watch biased media. There is a channel that I used to watch that I stopped watching, Yadi Daba, because it is very pro-Palestinian. What is it? It's called DW channel. No, not DW. I said DW earlier. What I wanted to say was Channel 4 News. It is, I think, British or Australian. I stand corrected or whatever. I used to love watching them, but now I don't watch them anymore because they are obviously pro-Palestinian in a way that is very disturbing to me. I am sticking to, I guess, when it comes to news coverage, largely Christians who are covering this stuff from a journalistic viewpoint, like Eric Stackelberg, or if at all they are, secular. If at all they are secular, it'll be like maybe Fox News. South African news I don't even care to listen to because everything there's biased onto the ANC. Or WION, that Indian channel for news, is also able to report from a vantage point where it's neutral concerning Israel, right? Even though India is currently trying to vie for a two-state solution, they're nonetheless listenable. I can take them in my stride. They're not going out of their way to make this nonsense look like it's okay that Hamas did on the 7th of October. So I'm basically choosy as to who it is that I listen to. Do you understand what I'm saying? Precisely because I understand the world is literally, there is a whole mission, a drive to convert us into a Stepford land. And even that which is Stepford in nature is not really good for any of us, because who in the world wants a world that is pro-Muslim, pro-Islam, when it is such a violent religion? Who in the world wants to convert the world into the image of Islam? If you want to convert the world into the image of Islam, you are converting the world into Iran. You are converting the world into the United Arab Emirates. We understand the UAE is beautiful architecturally, but guys, it is not comfortable to live in the UAE as a man or a woman, especially as a woman. Like, if you fall pregnant out of wedlock, you can get killed in the UAE. There is no grace, there's no mercy. Like, that's what's good. God knows what in the world would happen to the baby in the stomach. So pro-life people would not want to be in the United Arab Emirates. There was a flight attendant that gave birth to her baby unbeknownst to herself that she was pregnant. She was a single woman, she wasn't married, that gave birth to a baby when she was in another country. A car overlay, like, you know, when you're moving from like one airplane to another, and overnight you're staying in a hotel and then you're gonna move. Yeah, that she wasn't, and she got sick, she had cramps, gave birth to a baby, and she's from the United Arab Emirates. She had to find asylum and live there permanently in Europe, because if she went back home she would get killed. That's what happens in the UAE. So if at all you want to convert the world in the image of an Arabic nation, you are converting the world into a space of that nature. It's not safe, and people are not rational. They're not thinking straight. Like all of these pro-Hamas, pro-Palestine, pro-Islam rallies, you don't know what in the world would happen to you in a country if your country got converted to Islam. You don't know how significantly thwarted and paralyzed you would be. You have no idea how incredibly paralyzed you would become if your nation switched over to Islam for a religion. So South Africa doesn't even know what in the world it's doing right now. It is, I already complained about South Africa the other day. Their whole cutting off diplomatic ties with Israel, even though it's a Christian nation, they're basically standing with Allah. And if at all this population of this country increases in its Muslim, what is this constitution, in its number of Muslims in comparison to Christians, you might as well move to Iran and call it South Africa. Like in the future, like you might as well move to the UAE and call it South Africa, move to Lebanon and call it South Africa. Like, you know, you never really know what freedoms you have until you've lived in a free society. That's why a lot of the women in the Middle East don't complain, and that's why a lot of the men also don't complain. But go and ask the ones that have lived in Europe, go and ask the ones that have lived in the US, ask the ones that have lived in Christian nations that are democratic in Africa, and ask them if at all they're going to be honest with themselves, if they would want to now go back and live in in their countries where they come from. No, they wouldn't, because there's just such little leg room in Muslim nations. Everything is a crime, especially for women. So I mean, really and truly, who under heaven wants to live in a space of that nature? However, in the US, for instance, right now, professors of university, not professors, sorry, but what is this? Deans, leads, presidents, chancellors of universities that have got cases being reported on the ground on campus of anti-Semitism against Jewish students are indeed in agreement that this should not be happening. We should not be persecuting any of our students. They should be safe. But according to the charter of that particular university, if at all any such violent activity against a fellow student is ever walked in, that student in question that did that, the perpetrator, would have to be suspended, if not expelled from the school altogether, kicked out. The president of these chancellors or whatevers, the leader honcho guys of these universities are saying that they don't want to employ their own university charters, rules basically, the governmental structure of the university on these students, because if they do it, these students are going to find themselves getting deported, and they don't want to get them deported. Okay, so Jewish students must be in danger so that Palestinian students or students from Muslim nations that don't want to go back to their nations don't get deported when they have committed crimes in a country that cannot afford such crimes to be committed on their shores. Like, you come from Iran and you're studying in an American university, and then you basically endanger the life of an American student in the name of your radical Islamic country. And your university chancellor, dean, president guy is unprepared to get you expelled and take you back to Iran when you're literally committing a terror act on US soil. That's the kind of craziness that's happening in the world right now. And so people, if they don't take a stand, are going to find themselves as Stepford people. You are going to find yourself in universities where you are studying, literally tiptoeing around Muslims. You are going to be scared as a Christian to put a sticker of a fish on your car, bumper sticker, or a sticker of a Jewish cross on your car. Like, Jews are even currently being told to not look so Jew when they're out there walking in the wilderness. Like, wear plain jeans and a t-shirt. Don't rock that whole what do they call it? And like their braiding of their beards and everything. You know how Jews look so Jew when they're dressed in like Orthodox apparel? Yeah, they are being encouraged to, for now, not to look so Jew. What in the world? That is a lack of justice. Do you understand what I'm saying? And so when you capitulate to it, you stop being fluid, you stop moving, you start being scared to wear what you want to wear. You start being scared to speak as you desire. Now, every time when you talk to people, you don't say to them, shalom, lest they should know you're Jewish. You are just like, hello there. What in the world? When you are scared to just say shalom to somebody as they're passing by, therefore evidencing, giving hints of either your Christianity or your Judaism, you have entirely capitulated to Stepford, the country, or Stepford, the continent. You have capitulated to living in Stepford when you can't even greet people in the name of Jesus, or when you can't put a bumper sticker that you want on your car, or when you can't wear whatever outfit you want to wear because it makes you look too Jewish, or you know what I mean? Like, yeah. So if you don't continue to fight, people will gaslight you into oblivion. There are people that need to be left. If you don't continue to stand, there is no future. There's a gray, like not even black and white, just a gray, very dull, very boring future of people that are scared to offend lest they should mess everybody up. And the people are then going to start having very ubiquitous, generalistic conversations with others so as to not offend anybody. When everybody in the room is now talking about the freaking weather, I'm sorry, there is no future for us all. When everybody is now talking about, so before you even introduce yourself to a person, you gotta make sure that they're okay with being called he, she. You gotta make sure that they're okay with being called a girl or a boy. You gotta make sure that they are okay. Like, goodness gracious, when you can no longer have an academic discussion about religion without causing war to break out, when you cannot have an academic conversation about any topic at all that might trigger some people, you are no longer free. And the thing about living in a free society is that when people get offended by what you say, you at least are guaranteed for the better majority of the time to get home still in one piece. You will be safe. Even though you're gonna have people that will have, ngapelad you. You might have people that might have looked at you with creased foreheads, or you might have had people that might have had a verbal altercation exchange with you, but you will get home in one piece. Now you're facing a bullet in your skull. I'm sorry. Now you're facing being trampled underfoot like it's a stampede of animals. I'm sorry. Now you are literally facing even loss of a job. Like, there is apparently a teacher in the US that told kids in preparing for Christmas that Santa Claus is fake and Jesus is real, and the chick is now like literally on suspension or something. Like, I apologize. If we cannot say that to children in a Christian nation, if we cannot say to kids that Santa is fake and Jesus is real in a Christian country, we are living in Stepford in the making. If you get, like, political correctness is going to kill the innovation spunk of people. It's going to give people cognitive dissonance. It's going to give people suppression of speech. They won't know where to pull from which orifice of their body. Do you understand? Certain words so as to not offend. And when you live that uncomfortably, it's not earth. I don't know what it is, but it's something that's got to be destroyed. It's not earth. I don't know what it is, but it's something that's got to be destroyed. You cannot live in a nation that calls itself one that has freedom of expression and of religion and then feel stymied and have to look in the sky and squint your eyes and wonder what in the world to say, lest you should offend this innocuous looking person in front of you that could morph into a beast just because you stood your ground. I will not be gaslit into shutting up. I don't want to be monotone. I do not want to be without character, personality. I don't want to be Pleasantville. I don't want to be gray instead of colorful. I do not want to lose who I am. So if it means I must live in isolation with all of my spunk and my color, all the rainbows, all the color of the rainbow shining all around me, I will do that. If at all, my personality is going to be the end of me, then I would rather have a very glorious, beaming, shiny casket that's got all the colors of the rainbow emanating through it at my funeral, because I was subjugated to a life of solitude until I died for sticking to my guns. Heaven will rejoice upon me arriving. I will be told, well done, my good and faithful servant. You have fought the good fight. You have run the race. You have kept the faith. I will be heralded and celebrated in an ecosystem that was holding fast to truth. In a society when truth does not matter, people become monotonous, people become Stepford, females and males, people become basically non-binary. And who in the world wants a genderless society? Who? Because we are who we are, made in the image of God, male and female, the way that we are, that we might be as colorful as we are. And so if you want your little non-binary society, take it. I don't want it. Take it. I absolutely will have nothing to do with it. It's that basic. So if you have hurt me, you better acknowledge you've hurt me. If you've cursed me, you better tell me you've cursed me. You cannot tell me, just like the world is trying to tell the Israelites right now, that they did not encounter this. Like popular, it's like Jewish denial, not Jewish denial, but Holocaust denial. Like people who thoroughly say the Holocaust never even happened, except like millions of Jews died. There's photos of bodies heaped on top of each other, with the Americans literally showing the world, parading all of this, these atrocities in front of everybody. But there are individuals who will run with some randomly pontificated rubbish in these streets. It would be like the equivalent of saying that Jesus Christ never lived when there are historical records proving that he was around. Just admit you don't believe in him, but you can't say he never lived. You know what I mean? So when you refuse to fact check, when you refuse to gain thorough comprehension of a set of facts, on that day, stay in an ignorant corner and be disrespected as all ignorant folk ought to be. But you don't get to be a whole journalist. You don't get to be a whole seasoned reporter. You don't get to be a war correspondent and be a Holocaust denier or an October 7 denier. You don't get to be an advocate of the CCMA and deny that Karabo was dismissed from her job thanks to a dismissal letter looking at you, and then claim that she resigned. That's what happened with me. My CCMA case, I lost it because CCMA insisted that I resigned when I was holding a whole dismissal letter in my possession with an MTN letterhead and everything. That's a Holocaust denial right there. That is October 7 denial right there. Like, you have got all of, like, literally you're being looked at by footage by imagery of a massacre, and you say it never happened. They looked at my documentation and they said it never happened. They looked at a dismissal letter, like proper, gawking at them, yakwa MTN, and they said I resigned. Guys, I'm sorry, like what happened to me, yes, I'm still shocked. I was shocked, but I'm still shocked at the way that truth does not matter anymore. Good is evil and evil is good. Truth does not matter. So people want me to grab those experiences where an advocate at the CCMA, a man that went to law school, got an LLB, and then studied further until he was on the bar of attorneys, rendered an advocate, went on right ahead, to put a stamp down on my case at the CCMA, saying that I'm basically throwing my toys out the cot for nothing. MTN never fired me. I resigned. That's what happened. Like I'm not making this up. It's not, this time around, it's not an analogy. This is not a metaphor. It's what really happened. A whole qualified advocate in South Africa took a dismissal letter that I produced, that was sent to me with an MTN letterhead, signature ya Tembanyati, like proper, the real copy, not even the original, not the copy, and said that I was, God Almighty have mercy, that I resigned, that I quit. So I frankly don't even have a case at the CCMA 2 open. There is no case here because you can't go to the CCMA after quitting your job. You're wasting resources. You're wasting government resources. When I'm sitting with a dismissal letter in my possession, the whole thing was recorded. I have a tape with the recording of the whole what do you call this? Of the whole arbitration. And I listened to it after it came back home, after I was given it to me, the tape. The whole thing was recorded, where an advocate blatantly denied. When I say my evidence is exculpatory, guys, I'm not even lying. He blatantly denied my dismissal. I not only have the document of dismissal, but the tape, the recording, the whole recording of my case, and I still lost. And because of that, I lost my entire career. And I'm being told by South Africa to just get over it. Get over it. I'm sorry. On the day I accept that, I will always be scared. I will be walking on eggshells everywhere. I will be afraid to raise an issue in any company that I work for, lest they should fire me and then claim I have resigned, because I have literally experienced a bizarre occurrence of that nature before, where a company fired me and then claimed I resigned. That's what happened. That's what happened. So when truth does not matter, like, it's just utterly irrelevant. It's the end of the world, you guys. When I look at what's going on in Israel right now, I see my case all over, where people are providing evidence of their innocence and therefore need for a war, to fight, to protect themselves. It's defensive, it's not offensive. They're being ignored and people are trying to make them look like monsters. I will not be gaslit into being a Stepford South African. Just take it, Karabo. I didn't do it. It wasn't me. I've got the data. I've got the proof. I've got the camera footage. I've got the recording. I've got the paper trail. And the person is still like, it wasn't me. And the only reason they can feel brave enough to say it wasn't me is because he or she has got a whole mountain of supporters that are happy to help him or her gaslight you. Like when you've got a whole stadium of supporters behind you in a lie, and you, who is the victim in this regard, are alone. They thoroughly imagine that since they are so concerted in their volumes, in their sheer numbers, they can somehow do away with facts that are staring at you, just like deeply and longingly into your eyes. We're living in a society where people are denying basic biology. Do you understand? When, if at all, a person were to get into an accident and end up in a hospital, that biology could save their lives. The veracity of them being a man or a woman could actually get them saved. Because doctors at med school study biology as it is, since they studied cadavers on a cold bed. And people are in denial of the fact that, you know, there are certain orifices on the body that make you a female and not a man. It can save your life if you've been in a car accident. It can utterly save you to admit that you're a girl and not a boy. But there are people who are trying to deny that. And there are entire camps of miscreants happy to help them along in that deception, insofar as you're not sick and need blood, insofar as you don't need an organ transplant, insofar as you don't need surgery on your brain, on your back, on your spine, on your nether regions, insofar as you don't need any kind of medical intervention, you get to be whatever you want to be. You get to be whoever you want to be. Like, for crying out loud, in 2014, an advocate at the CCMA said I resigned when I had documentation proving I was dismissed. And then years down the line, people across the world are denying that they are black, they are white, they are identifying as chickens, they are identifying as cows, they are identifying as males when they're females, and vice versa. Years down the line from that date where I was denied truth gawking at me and at everybody in the room, now people are denying things that are so bizarre to be denied that just 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, people would be shocked out of their minds that people are in denial about those basic facts. So it is no wonder there is so much denial even about the fact that 7 October happened in Israel. And despite the footage that is being provided by Israel to show Hamas as using their own civilians as human shields, there is denial about that. It doesn't matter anymore what a person sees as true or not. Bottom line is what do we as a majority agree should be true. There is currently an advert doing its rounds on YouTube, and I don't know why it's not being brought down. Precisely because truth does not matter. A deep fake advert. It's a deep fake advert that is currently swindling South Africans out of thousands of rands. Where it is that Elon Musk has apparently hooked up some kind of a stock thing where South Africans don't have to work to make money. They just have to invest 5,700 rands, and they use a deep fake of Elon Musk speaking, and they also use a deep fake of Deborah Patta. It's not Deborah Patta. Who is it? Is it Deborah Patta? She is a correspondent, a war correspondent as well now. Some South African journalist, I stand corrected what her name is, but she is sitting as an anchor, speaking about this as an advert that is causing South Africans to literally invest, trusting that this advert is going to run for long enough to ultimately be a scandal in the country. Then only are they going to send an email or whatever to YouTube to bring it down, because it's deceiving South Africans. It's deep fake. I can see it's deep fake. Why? Because of the content of the message. It looks like it's Elon Musk talking and the South African reporter, but it's deep fake. The truth doesn't matter anymore. The truth does not